Hello all, I'm Eric Spielvogel, Director of Education here at the American Philatelic Society. I'd like to welcome you to our monthly webinar series, StampChat. This is our 11th episode of the 2023 season, and tonight's talk is titled Alzheimer's Awareness Month, Philately and Philanthropy. That's a mouthful. This is a story of how our guest tonight turned a lifelong love of stamp collecting into a tool to help save lives. This StampChat complements Doug's October 30th article in the APS newsroom titled Turning My Hobby into a Benefit to Mankind, which was a part three, of a three-part series adapted from his column, My Hobby Became a Lifesaver. We are sharing his talk tonight to highlight Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month in November. Our presenter tonight is, as you have probably read already, Doug Friedman. First 6 decades of his life, Doug's philatelic love story was pretty much known only to his family and close friends. He was introduced to stamps in the early 60s by his grandpa Joe in Redondo Beach, California, and found great fascination by watching him add postage stamps from around the world to his collection. This includes, of course, U.S. postal artifacts, philatelic offices in Israel, the Vatican, that may come up in the story, United Nations, and these all told a veritable wealth of stories from places of origin. Grandpa Joe started Doug off with a beginner's album when he was about 10 years old, and his philatelic fascination grew every time he'd visit and watch Grandpa Joe pull a small suitcase, also an important part of the talk, from a high shelf in the coat closet. Inside were envelopes with stamps from hundreds of places around the world, and he was able to sort through those to find what he wanted to put in his album. 60-odd years later, into his stamp collecting journey, Doug still has Grandpa Joe's suitcase, I hope, with the stamps and envelopes alphabetically ordered with his handwritten labels, and pulls that out every now and then just to feel his presence. I love that part of your article. When he wasn't working in his career as a media journalist in LA, Doug did continue his philatelic journey as an adult, and with his help from his dad, Howard Bud Friedman, helped bring stamp collecting into the computer age and digital era. Another article for you to read. Fast forward to 2019, and as a fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Association's program Longest Day to support research for a cure, Doug finally shared his love of philately with the outside world, the topic for tonight's talk. Doug joined the APS in 1980, and lest you think otherwise, he does have other hobbies. He's a writer with a weekly article on Substack, little writer, writing a little, an actor in community theater, and sits on the boards of a number of nonprofits and foundations. His career again was in the television industry, and I'm told he's even won an Emmy Award. We'll have to check to be sure, but I think having an Emmy winner in a StampChat is a first. So glad to have you with us for this milestone. A little bit of quick house cleaning here for those watching the presentation live tonight. Your microphone and camera are disabled during the presentation to give all the bandwidth to the speaker. If you want to engage fellow attendees, please make comments in the chat section. And if you have questions, please use the question and answer box feature. We'll get to those questions at the end of the presentation. If you're watching this later as a recording, please feel free to ask questions in the comment section in YouTube. This program is provided thanks to generous support of APS members. If you're not already a member of the APS or would like more information on our services, please visit our website at stamps.org. Doug has two guests with him, Sarah and Lena. I'll let him introduce those. Doug, Sarah, Lena, welcome to StampChat. Doug, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Eric. Very happy to be here, very happy to have re-engaged, I guess, with the Philatelic Society, the American Philatelic Society. Been a member, as you mentioned, since 1980, and I guess that was when I started receiving the magazine, the American Philatelist, and for which for many years the pile that grew up and up and up until finally I needed to downsize. But it's always tremendous reading. As soon as I get it, every month when I get it, I just devour it. So it's wonderful to be here. As you mentioned, Eric, I started very young. I like to say I came out of the womb, with a mini stamp album. My grandfather lived in Redondo Beach. I grew up in Torrance. We were only a few miles away, but I would go on the weekends and stay with him. And even as early as I can remember, when I was there, he would be putting stamps in his album or organizing stamps. And um, you mentioned that he had the suitcase, which I'll show you a picture shortly, but because I still have it. Stamps from all around the world. But he basically kept stamps from the UN, United States as well, and Israel. And when the Vatican started issuing stamps in the early 30s, he had a dealer. He lived in Brooklyn. He had a dealer who would get him the new issues, and he would put them in his LB springback albums, which I don't know if anybody uses those anymore, but that's the way he did it. And he put the stamps on the pages, and he'd draw little rectangles, lines around them, and then he'd describe each stamp and what was important about it and I'll show you a little bit of that as well. But when the Vatican issued in the early 30s, mid 30s, issued a high value set of stamps that really wasn't going to be for ordinary postage. It was just high value stamps. The set was $35 to get, which was a lot of money in the middle of the Depression. And he told his dealer, I can't afford $35. This is a lot of money. And the dealer was saying, it's going to be the only hole in your collection. You really should have it. Get it. You'll be sorry later if you don't have it. But he said, no, he just couldn't do it. The dealer said, give me $5 a month until you pay it off. Anyway, he didn't do it. And when I was finally able to afford buying stamps myself, I was starting to work. I was an adult. I went to look for that set of stamps, and that set of stamps that was $35 in the early 30s was now $3,500, and it remained the only hole in my collection for the longest time. The funny thing is now is I can get that set on eBay for under $1,000. So for those of you who collect Vatican stamps, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I watched him. He saw that I was interested in what he was doing. He bought me the one of the beginner albums, as you said, that has the pictures of the stamps, and you just go and you put the hinges on the stamps and put them in. And eventually, as he got older, I started to take over his albums and add it. I'm going to share now. I will share my screen, and let's see. Let's share this and that. And here we go. That's me. Let's see if I push this button here. And there we go. There's my Grandpa Joe. And a couple of the pages from his albums, you could see he took the plate blocks and the singles and sometimes a canceled single and put them there, and with paragraphs above the stamps, talked about them. And the wonderful thing about these springback albums is you just write on the page. You don't have to, take it out of the album, just put it flat on the table and write. Then you can insert the pages. There's no wings. It's wonderful. Here is the famous suitcase that looks like it came out of a movie from the early 20s. I can see Charlie Chaplin walking into somewhere with this suitcase. The stamps on the right, you see that's his writing, and honestly, I get chills because every now and then, still up to even a year ago, I will thumb through some of these things, and there are articles that he clipped from Lynn's Stamp News, and there will be notes to me in the margin saying, Doug, please get this when you can, or look out for this issue. So it's like he's talking to me from beyond the grave. It's amazing. And I think what I put in my original article is that before he passed, and he told me how strong, proud he was of me for doing the collection, keeping the collection up in his books, and he told me one of his parting words says, if you ever stop the collection, or if you ever give away these I will come back and haunt you. So have never forgotten that, and I keep it up to this day because who wants that? Although I dream of them a lot. When I was, I guess here you can see younger adult, a lot grayer now, obviously. Um, I was involved with computers, early computers. My father there, Bud Friedman, he was an early adopter. He worked in the 1950s, mid 50s, early 60s with computers when they were the size of a house. He would take me to work with him, and he worked at Northrop Aircraft, and in the rooms there where they have the old IBM punch cards that they put into gigantic machines, and there would be reels of tape rolling, and lots of patching and all kinds of craziness around me. But now, of course, the little computers we have in our cell phones are thousands of times more powerful than what they had there. The interesting thing is that he knew I loved stamps. Our love for stamps skipped a generation, so went from my grandfather directly to me. But my dad and I bonded when we created one of the first inventories that could be put on computer for stamp collecting. And I wrote an article about it, I believe it was in '83, and it was in the American Philatelist in the early '84. And it was wonderful. It was a way that we could keep, and you can see the computer there, what it looked like, which is kind of a riot now, but we could store, I put my collection basically online. Now, we didn't have pictures then. It was all really just words in columns, and I could that way create printouts where I could print out my collection by Scott number or by value or by any way I wanted. And that was really unique. And so God love him. My dad passed early last year, but wonderful, wonderful man. And I've written about him as well. And today, as mentioned, I'm using a lot of my collection for good causes. So I've been keeping up and getting a lot of things. I added Great Britain to my list of countries that I saved, and continued with Israel and the U.S., of course. And I started getting involved with I guess the stamp show, SanDeCal. SanDeCal here in San Diego was a yearly event in January, and I went and I got to know the people there, and I created, this was probably 15 years ago, I created public service announcements. I worked at a television station. I had the ability to create a public service announcement showing stamps and showing pictures from there. So it was important to me to advertise, and got them all kinds of free advertising on the TV station where I worked. It brought lots of new people in, lots of new people that never collected stamps, but they liked what they heard and what they saw. And so it was like exposing a whole new audience to stamp collecting, which was very exciting. I would suggest to anybody who really wants to help promote the hobby, talk to the people in your, wherever you live, the television stations, the newspapers, and get stories in there. Tell them your story, your love for stamps, and what you're doing. I was able to bring stamps there that I donated that they could give to kids. And my giving of stamps, extra stamps that I had, extra issues and things continued. And I would go to the Boys and Girls Club here in San Diego and donate stamps. And they'd bring kids in, and they started a stamp club, which was exciting. And it was very important for me to continue, to continue that. I've been for the last five or 6 years now, every year, I donate to the American Philatelic Society. I put extra stamps and philatelic items that I have into a package, and I send them there to the education department, and they'll use them to help promote the hobby. And I'm thrilled about that. I have so much stuff now because everybody who reads, not everybody, a number of people who read about my collecting call me and say, my uncle left me this collection, and I don't know, I don't know what it's worth, but I'm willing to give it to you, and you can pass it on as you like to kids. So very exciting to do that and spread my love for the hobby. Specifically now, I'm raising money for the Alzheimer's Association in a unique way. And I'm going to talk about that without the picture on. So let's see, how do I do that? Stop video? No, I don't want to stop the video. Okay, help me, Eric or Scott, and unshare me, and I'll come back on if you can do that. If not, I will keep. Oh, wait a minute. Escape. There we go. Okay. And there. Oh, I see myself. Oh, I saw myself. Okay. Can you see me? Okay. So let me just open this up again. There we go. Oh, there's. Okay. I'm back. Thank you. Computers still challenge me. So in 2019, I was honored to join the Alzheimer's Association here in San Diego as the Director of Communications, and work with the wonderful Lena and Sarah, who you'll meet in a moment. They have this wonderful, the Alzheimer's Association was important to me because after I moved to San Diego, I lost a number of very important people to me in my life. My mother came down with vascular dementia, and my father took care of her for years. Very dutiful husband, and it was remarkable how he cared for her, never complained. In the last years of her life, he was the hospice for her. Never let her go to stay anywhere else. He could have put her in a home, and he just said, no, this is her home. This is where she lives. When she passed, he had a few good years, but he started showing signs of dementia as well. It turned out he had a rare form of dementia that took his life last year. They were both in LA, and at the time that I moved here, I had two uncles and an aunt who were also going through the same thing with dementia, and I was caregiver for my uncle. Eventually had to put him in a home, memory care facility, and then my aunt was able to stay home. And so it had a very personal, I had a very personal connection to it. So to be able to work for the Alzheimer's Association was wonderful. I started giving away stamps to people who would donate to my campaign for the longest day. And I'm going to turn it over now to Lena first, and then to Sarah, so she can give you a few minutes to talk about Alzheimer's and what it is and what the association does, because I think that's important. And they are my charity of choice now. And I mean, I always love the Philatelic Society, and I will continue to donate stamps. But I also love the Alzheimer's Association. Go ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Doug. And it's so great to see you. As as Doug said, he was with the association for three years before he left us to retire. But so excited to be able to see him today, and to hear so much about his wonderful fundraiser for the longest day that I was able to see since I joined the association as well. So hello, everyone who's online today and whoever's watching our replay. My name is Lena, and I am a community engagement manager with the San Diego and Imperial chapter. Sarah, Doug, and I are all here on the West Coast. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about the association, a little bit about what our chapter does, and wherever you are in the world, what the chapters around the U.S. Do to support families and those who are living with the disease. So, as you can see on the screen here, this is our mission, right? The association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing care and support, which is really important for us to be able to encompass all of those things, right? Not just the person living with the disease, but their care partners and their families and everyone as well. Everyone at the association knows how much I do love this graphic because, when we're out and about Sarah and myself and, our colleagues as well. And Doug, I'm sure you too, when you were, with the chapter, people ask, what is Alzheimer's? What is dementia? Is there a difference? What is the difference, right? And so I really love using this graphic, and because it kind of explains, visually what dementia is, right? So that umbrella term for changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. And Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. You can see that first big raindrop here, which is probably how you folks hear about it, or maybe you have as well, maybe more in the news and things like that. But as Doug said, as his family, his mom had vascular dementia, dad had another form of dementia as well. So those are also other common forms. You can see Lewy body, frontotemporal, Parkinson's and Huntington's disease also has a similar biology, and then mixed dementia as well is common also, dementia from more than one cause. As you can see here, the hallmarks of Alzheimer's itself, the buildup of plaques and tangles in the brain, right? The beta amyloid and tau. And just this graphic here showing a healthy brain versus a brain with advanced Alzheimer's, just how physically different it looks, smaller, that neurodegeneration that you see. So it is a disease of the brain, right? So, just that comparison here for folks. If you haven't seen or maybe have a few questions about the disease, that's kind of what Alzheimer's is in a nutshell. And so I just wanted to touch on a couple of resources that we have through the association that anyone and everyone can use, right? So I love sharing our helpline, our 24/7 helpline, just because it is available 24/7, right? We have master's level clinicians who are available to answer any questions for any question you have, right? So if it's something about if you're going through the disease journey itself, or you're just curious, I know a couple of our coworkers have called the helpline 2, 3 in the morning, needing, some assistance or to answer a question, right? So that's there. It's also available in over 200 languages. And so we use the language line for that to kind of reduce the barrier for folks reaching out for help. And again, available wherever you are in the US, right? So I know Eric said that, and Scott are in Pennsylvania, you can call the helpline. Here in San Diego, you can call the helpline as well. I saw someone chat in about their San Jose club. You can call the helpline as well. So wherever you are, the helpline is available to you, as well as alz.org. So much information is there. I refer folks to the website pretty much anytime someone calls, because there's so much information there. We have education classes, but we also have information on different topics as well. Driving is a big one, how to have that conversation if your loved one maybe shouldn't be on the road anymore. Or if you're looking for information about vascular dementia or about Lewy body dementia, all of that is there and available for folks to use also. You can also find your local chapter as well. We have a kind of an interactive map. So you just put in your zip code, and I guarantee you there's going to be a chapter near you. So you can reach out to your local chapter wherever you are. And of course, our community resource finder as well is another place that I love to direct folks to, because there is so much available there. Again, filtered by zip code, so you can look for our programs, of course, put on by local chapters, but you can also find community services like medical services, at-home care, housing options is another one that a lot of folks say that they're looking for their loved one, and you can also find that information there. Again, communityresourcefinder.org. And I think Sarah's going to go into a little bit of what, the longest day is, but, there are so many ways for you to get involved as well. I mean, Doug is a perfect example, right? Coming back and doing the longest day fundraiser with us, doing some of our programs, being an advocate and using your voice, if you have a personal connection, or even if you don't, to share with folks about why you are so passionate about the cause and why you want to get involved as well. The longest day is one of our fundraisers, but another one is the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which happens around every fall. That's another way that folks can get involved. And of course, if you do know someone who is going through this journey, or is looking for some support, of course, sharing our resources is another way to do that as well. Even I've been at the association for just over 2 years now, and some folks still come to me and say, wow, I didn't even know you were there or you existed, right? And I didn't either when my family was going through this. So having those conversations and just sharing, what it is that we do is so powerful to get families the resources that they need. So that's all from me. I'm going to stop sharing, and Sarah, I don't know if you wanted to kind of hop on and explain, what the longest day is and how folks can get involved also.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Sarah Granby also with the San Diego Imperial chapter of the Alzheimers Association, and I oversee the Longest Day program. And the Longest Day is basically, it's our do-it-yourself fundraiser, where you take any activity that you love to do and turn it into an event to raise funds and awareness for Alzheimer's. So that's what Doug has done, is a perfect example of that. And while I'm talking, I'm just gonna put in all the links to Doug's event. If you wanted to make a donation to his event, if you wanted to learn more about the Longest Day, there's the links. And if you had any questions, there's my email. But why is it called the Longest Day? Well, it started on June 21st or June 20th, the longest day of the year, to acknowledge that every day is the longest day for those living with Alzheimer's, including their caregivers. So when we first started, it was just, you just did on June 21st, but now it is spread so you can do any event at any time of year. It can be one day of the year. It can be, as Doug's fundraiser goes throughout the year. You can do it that way. And people have done, you name it, people have done a Longest Day event for this. So we partner, bridge, yoga, dancing. You can do a little party at your house. People do endurance events. People have done all sorts of crazy challenges. If I raise this much money, then I'll dye my hair purple. If you raise this much, I'll pierce my ear. And people have done all those things. So it's a really fun and meaningful way to help raise funds and awareness for all the programs that Lena has been talking about. And Doug, I don't know if you wanted to talk specifically how yours worked. I forget the details, because you basically, I think it was like if you made a $50 donation, then you got a stamp. I don't know if you were planning to talk about that or if you would like to.
I will.
Okay.
You want me to do that now? All right, I will.
Well, unless there's any other questions about the Longest Day. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. And like Sarah said, it's just tremendous, because whatever your hobbies you have, you can turn it into a fundraiser, and you get people to your house and just do a reading of something that you like, and people will donate. And the money helps. It goes towards research. The Alzheimer's Association is the largest non-governmental funder of research to cure dementia, not just Alzheimer's, but all kinds of dementia. So what I did was I decided I have all these tubs full of items, and what I will do is I will pull things for my donors, anybody that donates to my site, to my fundraiser. I'll find out what they're interested in. I've most likely got some sort of stamp or stamp booklet or souvenir card or first day cover or envelope, something that's interesting to them. My insurance agent donated to my first fundraiser, and I said, I'd like to send you something, and what are you into? And he said, well, my son loves Marvel, everything Marvel comics, Marvel movies. So I said, great, I have lots of Marvel stuff. So I sent him some cards, some postal cards that had Marvel on it, and I still have a lot of Marvel stuff. And I'll show here just some of the things, and it's just because you stamp lovers, all the stamp lovers will love seeing these things. And these are so where's there it is. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So we saw this. We saw it. Okay. So so this is me during during COVID, where I let my hair go for a year because my hair person wasn't seeing people, and that was just a card from the UK. I use that on social media. But I mean, these are some of the things that I have that I'm happy to send. You know, for someone that will make a donation of $50, $60, or $100, even better. If you can't donate that much, that's fine. But these are all fun things, and you know, I'll never take anything out of an album that my grandfather or I started. But like I said, there's so much more that I have. The presidential set on the right, that's an envelope that holds all the presidents of the U.S. and all kinds of fun. So it's not just the U.S., but I've got envelopes, and I've got things from all over the world, all different subjects. Israel, these are souvenir cards from Israel that are stamped with the stamps as well. And so I have a lot of these. I'm happy to share and give away. I've got lots of US stuff, packets of things that I just never put into a book because there's so much to them. These are all postcard albums, not albums. These are all just sets of postcards that have different designs, and you know, a lot of them are still in the cellophane that were wrapped in. But you can see the different kind of subjects and different kind of things. You know, love lighthouses, love superheroes, Star Wars, baseball. I mean, everybody you know has got something they'd love to have a souvenir like this from. I have, and I'm happy to do this. I'm going to break up a set to do this if people want it. My grandfather started collecting the Bureau of Engraving and Printing souvenir cards when they started coming out. So I've got going way back to one, and most of them have engravings, buildings, and or dollar currency and things like that. But I'm going to be donating those to the Philatelic Society too. But before I do, if there's anyone there that would like one of those, I can show you plenty of them. I've got hundreds of them. To donate and to be a part of my fundraiser for this year and many more years, it's easy. You can hold your phone up to the screen and you get the QR code. It'll take you right to the page. It will, you can go to the ACTALZ.org, go/stamps, or just write to me and I can direct you. I will follow up with you. When you donate, I'll get your email and I will write to you and say, what do you like? What interests you? Do you have children that would like something? Do you have others? I will happily work with you and share. I've got some wonderful things. I have some things that have great value too, that for a larger donation, I'm happy to share. So let's have a conversation. And that's pretty much it. I would love to take any questions, that anybody has. I don't know if any have come in to see that. I figured out the stop and share without having to ask for Eric's help.
Thank you so much, Doug, Lena, and Sarah, for all of that information. The combination of storytelling about the philately and the personal connection, Doug, with your grandfather and your father. There's a couple questions, and this is a kind of a moving subject, and lots of different ways. So you'll have to, but I'm sure that there's moments when this kind of you really feel this in a lot of different ways, that connection with your relatives. I wanted to ask you, one of the first questions is, do you remember what it was like when you first had the idea and then you went ahead and you got a donation and you knew this was beginning, and then there's a connection that you build with the person who's made the donation, what they want out of the collection and what you think you have. What was that like for you to do that the first time?
It was, well, it was tremendous. First of all, it allowed me, because I put it on my Facebook page, and I got donations from people I hadn't spoken to in years, and I was able to reconnect with them. And one of them, a close friend, I didn't know she was an Anglophile, and I said, I've got these cards, souvenir cards and covers and things from with the Queen Mother and Queen Elizabeth. And so, oh my God, gotta send me that. So I'd send her something, and I would get multiple donations during the year from her, just so I could send her more things. And everything that I give to someone is going to be something worthy of framing as well. I think the best story I have is that I wrote an article, a very small article for my local neighborhood newspaper. It was only about 7 or 8 paragraphs about how I love stamps and how I turned it into a hobby for the Alzheimer's Association. I don't think more than 400 or 500 people even saw it. It's a very small neighborhood here. And I got a call. I think it was Sarah that got the call. I know someone called the office and said, Doug, there's somebody in your neighborhood who saw this article and he wants to give you his stamp collection. He inherited a collection. So I went over to his house. I called him and then we set it up, and I went over to his house and he showed me, he pulled out, like so many of us have these stories. I got my uncle's collection, my grandfather's, my parents. I found this in the attic. And I took a look at it, and having collected for as long as I did, I know there wasn't a lot of great value to the stuff there. It was a lot of not uncommon things, but there was a lot of it. I told him I would give it to, I would donate it in turn. But there was a piece of paper hanging out of one of the albums, part of a paper, and I pulled it out and I said, "What's this?" And he said, "This is a check I want to donate to your fundraiser and to the association." And there was a check for $2,000. It was $2,000 the first year. And he said, "I'm really touched by what you do, and this is important to me." He said, "Call me next year." And so, of course, I called him the next year. And I went, we talked, and I had some things for him that weren't necessarily stamps, but things he would be interested, because I got to know who he was. And he gave me a check again for, I think it was $8,000. So I've had probably, I don't know, $14,000, $15,000 now from this one gentleman who happened to see my little story in my little neighborhood throwaway newspaper. So I mean, that's just tremendous, and that is so important, because thinking that how much that can fund in programs for the Alzheimer's Association or for research, and that's why, and it all circles back to, I guess, the theme of this chat and of my columns is how to use your hobbies for good. And I know that everyone watching this, most likely everyone, are stamp collectors and can do the same thing. But also, if you have other hobbies and other things that you can do to get people together, it's amazing how good it feels. I think we're a generous people, we philatelists, to begin with. I've given talks at Kiwanis and other clubs and places too, that everyone's just warm, good people who love what we do. And at the Alzheimer's Association, the Philatelic Society. So I just say, be there. Just don't be a loner who isn't going to share your love for our hobby with others, and donate to the APS. It's very easy to find on the website. The education department will take things, packages, and then it's a write-off too, up to $5,000. You can, I don't even think you have to itemize up to a certain point, but anyway, I'm an enthusiast for that. So Eric and Scott, thank you so much for having me to talk about it. Or there must be other questions, perhaps.
There are, and we might keep you on here for a while. The APS really runs, donations are a very significant part of how we share the love of the hobby, how we generate connections with stamp collectors, how we generate connections with the youth, all those things. So yes, that's a really important part of it, and we're really thankful for all those donations that come in. There's kind of a range of questions. I'm trying to decide what the next one is, but you mentioned the donor that sent you $2,000 the first time and then $8,000, and it brought to mind the question of, what does, say, $10,000 do in the research world? And maybe this is a question for Elena, which is what does that represent as an outcome or a type of research? And then also, what is the front line of research now? Like, what are we learning about this recently that gives us some more hope? I mean, this is such a devastating, difficult condition. So, can you link that money to outcomes a little bit and tell us where that's at, Lena?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very timely question too, because just last week, I think we heard from our home office that the association hit our $100 million milestone for funding research. Gosh, that's across the world. So now we have hit that milestone, right? And the money that folks donate, that will donate to Doug's fundraiser. I have one as well. I know Sarah's doing one too. Goes into those local research projects. So I know, I guess, the most about our projects that are happening here in San Diego, but we have about $5 million active right now, almost 15 million that have gone into projects here locally. And, we have projects and are funding projects around the globe. And so, some exciting developments from that is that we now have 2 treatments that have shown to stop or slow down the progression of that buildup of amyloid and tau in the brain. One is Aduhelm and one is called Leqembi. And so that, even in the past 5 years, has been such a great development in this space of being able to say, yes, we do have a treatment now that is slowing the progression, giving families more time, giving the person with the disease more time to enjoy with their families and to keep their memories, essentially. And none of that would have happened without, the money that we get from donations to go into these research projects that people are doing around the clock. One of our projects, or one of the things that we have to share, is called At Any Given Moment, right? Any given moment, someone somewhere is doing research, whether it be here in the States or, in South America or, in China or in Africa. Someone is doing work all around the globe. And so that wouldn't be possible without, the very generous donations that we get from folks who are also passionate about the cause for whatever reason, personal connection or anything like that.
I'll add that not only are they finding ways to medically with these medicines slow down the progression, but they've spent a lot of money studying and sharing information about lifestyle and things that we can do to forestall any symptoms. There's going to be a blood test out very soon, thanks to research funded by the Alzheimer's Association, to be able, through a blood test, to tell if you have Alzheimer's or you have the signs of Alzheimer's, up to 30, 40 years before any symptoms show. So these are important things that we need to know, because in research, when we get people who have the symptoms already, you can only do so much. But if you're going to follow someone over the course of 10 years, 20 years, who maybe through this blood test has a higher risk of it, and you study that, it will all come to the point where hopefully eventually we're able to eliminate the disease altogether, like they did with polio.
Thank you. I appreciate learning a little bit more about that. I'm sure that how many people do we think Alzheimer's affects on a yearly basis, or is that not the measurement? Is it?
Yeah, so there's about 6 million Americans, more than 6 million Americans actually, who are living with the disease. And we have about 11 million care partners that, as the name suggests, takes care of them. Usually it's a spouse or a partner, but sometimes it's a neighbor or a friend. And so, those numbers are sadly only growing at this point. But, to Doug's point, we're working really hard to find that cure, to make sure that, no one has to go through this.
Yes, it's every step, every dollar matters, I'm quite sure. We had one participant just noted that they made a donation while we were on the air, which is wonderful, in memory of their grandfather and brother-in-law's mother who passed away from Alzheimer's, and keep up the good work. So we know we're doing things right this second. That's really satisfying, I would think. Is that, Doug, we'd asked kind of the satisfaction of this. Tell me about some other connections that you've made. I know you brought up the Marvel Comics. What's a connection you didn't see coming, or some maybe a unique thing that got built out of this that you managed to experience?
Well, I mentioned the Anglophile friend who just couldn't get enough of that. I think the most interesting thing is, and this is really a tribute to Alzheimer's, is that when I started the fundraiser and I started getting donations, the following year, a number of the people, and I mean a good number of the people who donated me, were doing their own longest day fundraisers. So that's so satisfying. The walk was mentioned too. I think Sarah mentioned there's always an annual walk to end Alzheimer's. There are more than 80 chapters of the Alzheimers Association around the US. So there's always one locally for you. And to get back to your question, it's just being able to have conversations with people who donate, about what they love. It's like getting to know someone better. A lot of interest in Israel stuff for me, and the UK stuff. I have things from all over the world, just odds and ends that I get and that I have. And you saw some of them, and I promise I will find something that you would like to frame and hang in your home.
That here at the APS, there's a model that we use a lot. I'm new to the education world here, and to Philately also, and so it's a model that has 4 dimensions to it: acquisition, disposition, community, and socialization and education. And this kind of hits all of those things. There's an exchange and kind of an ecosystem to this, where materials move from one thing to another to do certain things. And I kind of love the way that this embodies that. Postage moves around and has this initial purpose to connect people, and now it's being used a different way to connect people, in another chapter of the materials life. Always kind of like the life of materials. There's a participant who has wanted to kind of talk about what their stamp club does out in San Jose, and I'm not sure I can enable them live, and if I can't, I apologize, but I'm going to try. Meanwhile, I'm going to ask another question that came in. This one really is fascinating to me. We use the term a picture is worth 1,000 words. I know my grandmother had dementia, and the one thing that seemed to really hold up in her memory was music. That music, we would bring music in, and she would literally, she couldn't remember our names, but she could remember the names of songs. And that fascinated me. And so I'm kind of curious in this about whether you think philately and the physical object and the picture and its history, right? A lot of people who would be suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's now are older and remember the postal system as it was. Do you think there's any advantage, and this could be a question for any one of you, where the material or philately unto itself has some value to cognition, to memory, as an activity? It's kind of sparked by the question of, clubs are using philately for other things. Do you think there's any inherent value in the way stamps and philately can maintain memories for people?
I would think, just like any photo album, in front of a person that would bring back memories. And a lot of us, a lot of people with certain types of dementia can remember things from farther back than they can from what just happened recently. But Lena or Sarah, I don't know if you have any specific scientific things to add to that. Go ahead if you do. I know the music, we have studied the value of music, and we know, and we have videos about that, or there are videos about that on the Alzheimer's site, alz.org. Yes, I think it'd be very valuable. And even as an activity, we have, I keep saying I don't work there anymore, but the Alzheimer's Association has programs like we call here Memories at the Museum, where they will take famous pieces of art and they will bring people with dementia to them and talk to them about it. So it's more than just bringing back memories. It can be an educational thing, even if it's something doesn't remain with the person. It's something that you can do. It's an activity, and that's, I think, the most important thing, is that we have activities to do to keep these people vital and to bring some joy to their lives. Lena, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's perfect, Doug. And all I would say too is that, if you see videos of music is a big one, dance is a big one. I know I saw the other day, a former ballerina, they started playing Swan Lake and she started moving like her arms, right? And so I think, don't downplay, the power of, looking at, pictures or stamps or anything like that. Some of the folks that we work with have suggested folks to make a memory box with their loved one, adding pictures or fabrics even of things that they loved before, or tapping into kind of a little bit more of that long-term memory of what they've seen when they were younger or when they were younger adults, right? So if that's a way that, or you see that kind of light up in your loved one, definitely take that and run with it. I think there are so many things that folks can and families can lean into to keep their loved one, as Doug said, engaged and moving forward.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Doug. Those are great. Do you have anything to add to that, Sarah? Okay. Another comment. Doug thinks your hairstyle from COVID years matches today. So well done. Awesome.
Thank you. That's very personal. I appreciate that.
I like
There's
that.
Miami is right there, by the way.
I love it. This also speaks to the larger, the title of this is Philately and Philanthropy, and it speaks to the larger area of, can stamps do good things in the world? They're very personal, personally satisfying to people, and collecting has its own, I hope we could do some more talks on like the DNA of collecting and why that's important. And then why is sharing important? All those things kind of matter. But I also like when you get to do something out in the world where it's got this big, I saw in your collection, some Israeli material. And I wonder, last year when the Ukraine war was starting or was in full effect, there were some people trying to use the postal system in Ukraine to create philatelic material. Then they were using those to auction those off. I mentioned that in one of my notes to you, to auction those off and then use those proceeds to help orphans coming out of Ukraine. Do you know of any other kind of big, philanthropy and philately connections that, or any that relate even to what's happening in the Middle East now, or anything else like that?
I haven't heard of any specifically. I have friends in Israel, and I'm on WhatsApp with them regularly. It's horrible what happened. I know this isn't the place to talk about it, but it related to your question, it's certainly, and this used to happen a lot more often, private clubs and collectors societies and things would issue their own custom envelopes to commemorate something. And we know as collectors what stamps are coming out in the United States or whatever country may be watching from, stamps that are going to be coming out. You can create your own cover and then get them stamped first day of issue. I imagine that's still possible to do. That's what we did when we were young. We would send create envelopes for whatever the subject is, and we'd send them to Washington at the time, I think it was, and they'd come back to us in the mail, stamped first day of issue. So I think that the thing here is to be creative, and if you have causes and things that you know, it doesn't have to just be Alzheimer's. If you can find some creative way, be creative, find a way to bring kids into it. My gosh, I'm a big proponent of getting young people involved in the hobby. So have a party for kids. When I was in, you mentioned theater, I'm an actor, and I was in a community theater production of Les Mis, and it was actually, I wasn't in it. I was in a production, but this was one that my son was in a few years earlier, and a lot of young people there. So we had a party at the end of the show, and I put together little packages with French little French coins that I had bought on eBay from a collector in Europe. I bought like a whole package of like 30 or 40 of them from the early 1800s, around the time when Les Mis, the story, you know, Victor Hugo's novel, was written, and the musical was done. And I gave each of the kids who were in the play the little 1824, whatever it was, francs, things, whatever, and a little history about them. And I said, you know, here, this is something you can touch and feel from this play. This play to you may have only been a musical, but it was time in history too. And here you're actually holding in your fingers something that was passed around from person to person 200 years ago. And that's powerful. That's powerful, and that's the way I feel when I collect stamps. I mean, I think everyone probably watching can identify with it. You know, when you look at letters written from a husband to a wife in an envelope that's stamped and signed with their you know, address and names, and this is a wonderful connection to the past, and stamps. Yes, it's very vibrant and vital for promoting the Marvel movies and the Harry Potters and all the things that come out with today. But there's also a lot of history to it, and I think young people can get turned on by that too. I think it's a challenge for us to, you know, peel them away from their video games and their phones. And I would be happy to be on any committee with the APS that would discuss, you know, how we do that and make a project. So keep that in mind. Scott, I'm sure I'll hear from you now.
How to make little pieces of paper more engaging than video games is quite the challenge. I've done it with a couple of grandkids, and the tactile aspect of it is really significant, I do think. And the fact, I think in some ways we benefit from the fact that stamps don't circulate the same way that they used to, and now they have almost an exotic you know, nature to them for kids, especially who have never been a part of that system, really. There. So I've found that to be true at the APS here, and I think you're right. We have to wrap it up soon. We have one more question. I'm sorry, my apologies to the San Jose Club. I cannot enable another panelist, so we'll find some other way for you to tell this story. The question I want to ask, and I think this can go to any one of you, is that people all the time are talking about how difficult it is navigating into a volunteer experience. It's intimidating. Can you offer any insights into making volunteering less intimidating? Just any one of you.
I'll let Sarah or Elena talk about that. We need.
Yeah,
why is it? Thank you.
I think I kind of jump in, and then whoever else wants to add on. I work with volunteers quite extensively, and I think from the perspective of someone who's working with the volunteers, that what you'd be providing by volunteering, it provides so much to the mission, to what we're doing, that knowing that you are needed, that you are part of our mission to end Alzheimer's, or whatever organization it is, whatever their mission is, having volunteers like you is absolutely vital. I would also, and I think most of us who want to work with volunteers, I hope we're warm and nice people. And so reaching out and just a lot of times just saying like, I'm interested in volunteering, but you know, whatever your concerns are, like if anyone, honestly, I put my email in there. If you want to reach out to me and we can set up a time to talk, even if you're not in San Diego, you want to talk about it. And you can talk about, are your concerns about, I don't know if I'll have enough time, I don't know if I'll have enough value, I don't know, all of these things. We can talk through and find a role that works for you. And then on the flip side, I would say, in deciding to call or reach out, I think it's really important to know your why. I mean, I think, Doug, when you talk about your family and the connection to Alzheimer's, like, your why is so strong that it propels you forward to say, I want to, do this fundraiser and talk about it. So on the two directions, knowing why you're doing it kind of gives you that boost, and then knowing how deeply valuable you are to any organization's mission. We couldn't do it without volunteers. I mean, I think Doug and Lena would just agree that we cannot do what we do without volunteers. They're just absolutely vital, and we're so appreciative. And I kind of forgot what the question was exactly, so I hope I've answered it, but I will now pass it on if Lena or Doug want to say anything else about volunteers.
I would say too, to make it less intimidating, find whatever it is you love, right? So I guess the story that I have is I have a really good friend who first and foremost wanted to get involved with our chapter in the association because she has a personal connection. And so, I kind of talked about what it is that we do on are all staff levels, right? So we have folks that provide programs. We have folks who work with Sarah in the longest day. We have I know I mentioned walk as well. And so, as much as I would have loved to have her on, our programs and, delivering that wasn't really what she was looking for, right? But instead of kind of, walking away or, saying, oh, darn, right? She went and she, talked to Sarah about, some of the other things and opportunities that were available. And she found her volunteer home at Walk, and she's now leading one of our San Diego walks. And so, just finding, what it is that you love and what you love to do, partnering that with, as Sarah talked about, your why. It's so powerful, I feel, on both ends as well, both to the whatever organization that you want to work with, and to you, if you find that fulfilling and you find that sweet spot of doing what you love.
And I agree, it doesn't have to be this or that, our association or the APS, just charity in general, giving time. It isn't always about giving money, just being able to give time and find a cause that's important to you, and things where you'll feel like you're doing something important. And a lot of us don't have enough feeling important in our lives. So philosophical, Doug, here. It feels good to know you've helped anyone, and volunteer, go to a hospital, spend time with any organization with any interest to you. I'm sure you'll find it rewarding. And if you can tie in stamp collecting somehow and bring more people to the hobby, all the better. Eric.
I really appreciate all that commentary and that advice, and following what you love and trying to share pieces of what you love with yourself, which is, after all, the whole nature of this talk. Doug, I think your grandfather must be looking down on you and just be so thrilled and amazed at what you're doing with this, and that connection that this has made for you in your life and with anyone who you've touched. It's just a great story, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. I want to express to all the other and Lena and Lena and Sarah, thank you for sharing your time with us tonight and helping us learn a little bit more about this, your work, why it's important, where it's going, and how to get involved. For those folks who did not get their questions answered, sorry, we'll try to follow up with those. I'll send those questions to you, Doug. And also, please, any viewer who's watching tonight, please share this with anyone you think this will inspire or educate or be meaningful to. Thank you all three again for your time tonight and your participation and sharing your passions and your work. Scott, thank you for your moderation. And thank you to our sponsors who make this broadcast, this webinar possible in this series. And we'll wrap this up now. Thank you again so much. And Doug will follow up a little later. Thank you guys very, 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 very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much.